Before we begin, take a deep breath, relax, and let yourself drift into the past. If you enjoy this story, consider subscribing and liking the video. It helps more than you know. The year is 1349. The air hangs thick with the scent of damp soil and distant smoke. Your boots pressed deep into the mud, the leather softened by weeks of wear and the weight of every step. You are a gravedigger, one of many, though it never feels like enough. Each morning begins the same way. You rise before the sun, in a small wooden shelter just outside the village. The walls creak in the wind, the straw-stuffed bedding offering little comfort. You don't remember the last time you slept deeply. Not with the coughing. Not with the church bells. You grab your shovel, the handle darkened with sweat and time, and step into the grey chill of dawn. The mist is thick today. It clings to your coat, curls into your sleeves. You can already see the line forming by the chapel gate. Carts, wrapped bundles, faces that won't look at you. You don't expect them to. They know what you do, and they don't want to think about it too long. There was a time, not too long ago, when you worked with care. Each grave measured and carved, each cross gently placed. Now, it's just about keeping up. The cemetery has long since filled. Now the graves stretch into the field behind it, and even those are tight. You've learned to dig fast. You've learned to stack. The new trench is deep, nearly shoulder high. The walls crumbling slightly as you dig. Your hands are blistered, even through the gloves. The earth resists you, as though it's had enough. But you keep going, because no one else will. The priest doesn't speak to you much anymore. He used to bless the graves. Now he just nods and moves on, his face pale, his eyes distant. You can't blame him. He's lost half his congregation. He might be next. You might be next. But thinking like that slows the work. And the work never slows. Some days you work alone. Other days another digger joins. Silent, eyes sunken, shovel scraping beside yours. You rarely speak. There's nothing to say. You both know the routine. Dig, drag, lower cover, repeat. The worst are the small bundles. The ones that weigh so little, it doesn't seem real. You never ask whose they were. Sometimes someone whispers a name. Most times, no one does. At midday, you stop for water. A tin flask lukewarm, tasting faintly of iron. Your hands shake a little now. It's the exhaustion, or maybe something else. But you don't feel feverish. Not yet. You saw your neighbor go pale. He started with a cough. Then the swelling came, under the arms, along the neck. He was gone by morning. You buried him. The carts keep coming, more every day. The smell is harder now. You've tried herbs, cloth soaked in vinegar, holding your breath, but it clings. To your coat, to your hands, to your dreams. At night, when the wind is still, you can hear the distant cries of another town. You don't know how far, but it sounds close. You wonder if they're digging too. You wonder how long this will go on. You don't let the thought settle, because the shovel must keep moving. The bells ring less now, not because there are fewer dead, but because the bell ringer is gone. You buried him 2 days ago. Or was it 3? Time has gone soft around the edges. You mark the passing days by how many graves you've dug. You're losing count. The silence between the bell tolls is louder than the sound itself. A kind of absence you feel in your chest. Birds don't sing much anymore. Even the crows have grown quiet, as if the land itself is holding its breath. You've noticed changes in the village. Shutters that used to swing open each morning now stay shut. Chimneys that once smoked with the warmth of cooking fires stand cold and black. A bakery window shattered last night. You passed it this morning, a rat inside, chewing on flour dust. No one came to clean it. No one even looked. You still dig. Each grave a small act of defiance, of order, of ritual in a world unraveling. You've started carving simple marks on the wooden posts at each head. Not names, just lines. One for every soul. There are so many lines now. You wonder if anyone will remember them. If anyone will remember you. Today, someone left you a bundle near your door. Bread, some dried figs, a wool scarf. There was no note, just the items folded carefully, as if placed with reverence. You sat with them a long time. More than the food, it was the gesture that hit you. A quiet reminder that someone still sees you. Someone still cares. By evening, mist curls in from the edge of the forest. You watch it roll low across the graves, soft and white like breath on a cold morning. The trenches you've dug are quiet now. Filled. Marked. You begin a new one near the stone wall. The shovel sinks in with less resistance today. The earth seems tired too. As you work, a shape appears at the edge of your vision. A young boy, maybe 10, stands just outside the fence. He watches you. Thin arms wrapped around his chest. Face streaked with soot or maybe dried tears. You nod to him, slow. He doesn't speak. Doesn't move. Eventually, he leaves. You finish the grave. Set the final plank of wood. Press the soil firm with the back of the shovel. And then you sit. Right there, on the edge of the trench. Not praying. You've never been good at that. Just sitting. The stars come out, sharp and cold above you. You count them like you count the lines on the markers. Then, quietly, you stand. And prepare to do it all again tomorrow. The graveyard doesn't sleep. Even when you do. You've started waking up at strange hours. Sometimes before dawn, sometimes just after midnight. Each time, you think you've heard something. Not a voice, not quite footsteps either. But movement, like something brushing past the corners of the world. You lie still and listen. The silence is not empty anymore. There's an old tree at the far end of the yard, crooked like it's leaning in to listen. You've caught yourself glancing at it more than usual. A few times, you thought you saw someone standing beneath it. A figure, still and patient. But when you looked again, it was just the wind in the branches. At least, you think so. The loneliness doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces. You forget the sound of your own voice for days. When you speak aloud again, your throat feels dry, like it forgot how. Your hands work the same way they always have, but your thoughts wander. You catch yourself staring into freshly dug earth, thinking about what it would be like to just lie down. Just for a moment. Just to rest. You've started humming when you dig. At first it was to keep your mind company. Now it's habit. Soft, shapeless melodies, like lullabies no one taught you. They echo a little in the grave trenches. Sometimes you feel like something hums back. Just faintly. Under the soil, one morning you find fresh flowers left at one of the graves. Lilacs. Out of season. Bright against the grey world. You don't know who left them. No one's been around. You stare at them for a long time. You don't move them. They're the only colour you've seen in days. That night, you dream of a woman with no face, standing where the lilacs were. She doesn't speak, just watches. When you wake up, the flowers are gone. Fog rolls in again the next day. Thicker this time. You can barely see past your outstretched arm. You dig anyway. You hear voices in the mist. Whispers. Too low to understand. You're used to that now. When the fog clears, a small wooden toy lies at the edge of a grave. Carved by hand. A horse, worn smooth. You pick it up. Keep it in your pocket. It feels like a good luck charm, even if you're not sure why. You've begun to feel the weight of being the last one doing this work. Like a candle still burning in a room, long since emptied. But you keep digging. One grave at a time. You don't cry anymore. You don't flinch either. Not when you find a child among the dead. Not when someone buried yesterday is already unrecognizable today. You used to feel something. A squeeze in your chest. A sinking in your gut. Now, it's just another body. Another weight to lift. Another hole to fill. It's not that you don't care. It's that you can't. Caring takes something. And whatever that something was, you spent it weeks ago. You remember feeling, the way people remember warmth in winter. Your hands move automatically now. Shovel, soil. Shovel, soil. You don't think. You don't wonder who they were, what they liked, who missed them. You used to whisper prayers or pause for silence. Now it's just rhythm. One more down. Keep moving. There's a look people give you, the ones who survive long enough to see you, like you're made of stone. Or like you've turned into one of the dead, just still walking. They don't say it, but you know. They think you've lost your soul. Maybe they're right. Maybe it's buried out here too. At night, you stare at the sky. It's too quiet. The stars used to comfort you. Now they feel far away, like watching candles in someone else's house through the window. A rat runs over your boot once while you're working. You don't react. You used to jump or curse or swat at them. Now it's just a part of the job. The rats are just as much part of this place as you are. Maybe more. Sometimes you talk to the bodies. Not like a conversation. Just a word or two. Sorry? Bad day today. Hope it was quick. You're not sure why you do it. You don't expect answers. But it feels polite. And sometimes politeness is the only humanity left you can offer. Your shoulders ache. Your back constantly sore. But you feel none of it when you're working. Pain needs attention, and you've run out of that too. You've stopped noticing the smell. You've stopped noticing the weather. You've even stopped noticing time. But once in a while, in the middle of work, you catch yourself staring at a name carved into a crude board marker. Just staring. And for a heartbeat, you feel something. Then it's gone. And you go back to digging. You wake before the sun. Not because you want to. Your body just knows now. The graveyard pulls you like gravity. You sit for a while before moving. There's no rush. The dead will still be waiting. The mornings feel wrong sometimes. Too still, too quiet. You wonder if this is how the world ends. Not with thunder or fire, but with the weight of stillness pressing on your chest. You start to see things. Not the kind that leap out of shadows, but soft, flickering things. A silhouette at the edge of your vision. A voice you could swear whispered your name. Footsteps in soft soil where no one should be walking. You don't panic. You're too tired for panic. You just glance and carry on. One day, you dream of planting a tree. You dig and dig. But instead of roots, you find bones. And instead of soil, it's ash. When you wake up, your hands are clenched tight around your blanket. As if you were still holding the shovel, you begin to talk aloud more often. Not just to the dead, to yourself, to the sky, to the air. The silence used to be comforting. Now it feels too deep. Like a well you might fall into and never climb out from. You see someone watching you one evening. A girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing on the edge of the hill, wrapped in a shawl that doesn't fit. You blink, and she's gone. You don't mention it to anyone. Maybe she was never there. Or maybe she's been buried already. Either way, you keep digging. The graveyard has begun to feel like its own world. The rest of the village feels distant, like it belongs to someone else now. You notice moss growing over the old crosses. You don't remove it. Let it cover what it wants. It's doing what it's meant to do. Once, You pause in your digging because of a sound. Music, faint and wavering. Like someone humming down the slope. You freeze. You wait. It fades. Maybe you imagined it. Maybe someone else is losing their mind too. Your hands are always cold now, even when the sun comes out. The shovel feels heavier, but the soil feels lighter. As if the earth itself is tired of holding all this weight. You sit on a stone one night, overlooking your work. No one else is there, just you. You and the dirt. And the silence. But the silence feels different now. Not heavy, not empty. Just quiet. Just waiting. You walk through town one morning. Not to run errands. Just to remember that streets exist. That buildings still stand. That there's a world beyond mud and grave soil. It's strange. This used to be home. Now it feels like a stage you've walked onto uninvited. Windows don't open. Doors don't creak. Shadows move behind curtains. People are there, but they don't greet you. They don't wave. They don't smile. They watch. You feel their eyes before you see them, peeking through shutters, peering over fences. Like you're not one of them anymore. You're the reminder, the man who follows the plague. The one with dirt under his nails and ghosts behind his eyes. A child clutches her mother's skirt when she sees you. The mother pulls her close, not with hate, with fear. The way you might flinch from fire. Not because it's evil, but because it burns. A baker you once knew turns his face away. He used to give you bread, still warm. Now he stares hard at his counter as you pass, pretending you aren't there, or hoping you'll disappear. You pass a group of men by the well. They fall silent. One of them mutters something under his breath. Another spits into the dirt. You don't stop. You don't speak. You just keep walking. It's not anger you feel. Not sadness either. Just distance. You're still in the village, but no longer of it. You hear someone whisper behind you. Gravewalker. Maybe they mean it as an insult. Maybe it's just what they call you now. You don't turn around to ask. You don't want to know. There's a stillness inside you that wasn't there before. Not peace. Just a settling. Like stones on the riverbed after the current moves on. You pass the chapel. The door is open. You stand outside for a moment, watching candlelight flicker. Then you move on. You haven't prayed in weeks. Maybe longer. You're not sure if God hears you now. Not when you spend your days beneath the earth. By the time you return to the edge of the graveyard, the silence feels familiar again. You step through it like a coat. And when you lift the shovel once more, you no longer feel the weight of their stares. Only the weight of the earth. There's a rhythm to the work. It surprises you at first. The way each movement follows the last. The way your hands know the next step before you think it. You dig. Not too deep. The ground's packed tight from the last storm, but deep enough. The earth gives way with a muted sigh. Shovel, lift, toss, shovel, lift, toss. You count sometimes. Not to keep track. Just to let the numbers fill the space where thoughts used to live. 1, 2, 3, 17, 18. Then you forget where you were. Start again. The bodies come and go. Carried on carts, sometimes. Sometimes on foot, wrapped in cloth, or not wrapped at all. You don't look too closely anymore. Faces blur. The hardest part used to be the smell. Now it's the silence. Even the crows have grown quiet. Your hands are always dirty, even after you wash them. Even when you sleep. You swear you can feel the grit beneath your nails, the raw rub of splinters in your palms. You no longer cry. You no longer flinch. You lift the shovel. You dig. Sometimes there's a name spoken aloud. Most times there isn't. You work with others now and then. Men with hollow eyes like yours. No one talks much. There's nothing new to say, but the work continues. You begin to measure time in burials. 4 this morning, 7 yesterday, 3 before sundown. Seasons blur. The air grows cold again. You don't remember when it warmed. At night, you dream of earth, of hands reaching up, not to drag you down, but to hand you the shovel again. And still, in the dark of morning, you rise. You tie the scarf over your face. You take the path you always take, to the edge of the graveyard, where the tools wait, where the ground waits, where death waits, but politely now, as if it knows you by name. It was a morning like any other. Grey skies, loud wind, a dampness that made every footstep feel heavier. You stood at the edge of the pit, waiting for the next cart. Your hands were already wrapped in the cloth you use for work. Your shoulders ached in that dull, forgettable way they always do. The cart creaked toward you, slower than usual. One man pulling. One man walking behind, muttering something under his breath. 3 bodies this time. Wrapped in sheets so soaked through, you could see the outlines of limbs. You nodded, as always. No words. Just work. You removed the first body gently. The second one was heavier. A man. The third one. That's where everything paused. It was the face. Partially visible through a thin, tattered cloth. Eyes closed. Skin pale with the unmistakable shade of death, but you knew that face. Your hands hovered above the body, suddenly unsure. You felt it. A hesitation so unfamiliar it hurt. Not fear. Not sadness. Recognition. You pulled the cloth back just a little more. Yes, it was Thomas. Not someone you'd seen last week. Not a neighbor Thomas. From before. Before the plague. Before the graves. Before you were a gravedigger. Before everything. You'd known him as a boy. You used to race sticks in the stream, steal apples together. You'd laughed once. Actually laughed. Because of something he said about a goat with a crooked leg. And now, he was here. He didn't look surprised. But that made sense. You were the one who had changed. You stood there too long. The other workers were already moving on, laying the other 2 into the earth. You didn't move. Someone asked if you were all right. You nodded. That automatic nod again. Then gently, like placing a memory into the past, you laid Thomas into the grave. You didn't mark it. You didn't say his name aloud. But you knew it. You wouldn't forget it. And that was enough. That night, you didn't dream of earth. You dreamed of water. Of sticks racing downstream. And someone beside you, laughing. Just out of reach. You've always trusted patterns. Wake at dawn. Wait for the carts. Dig. Cover. Repeat. But lately, they've started to blur. The bell from the chapel rings at the wrong hour sometimes. Once, you heard it at midnight. Just one toll. You were awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. No one else seemed to notice. Then there was the woman who thanked you. A pale figure, standing beside the cart. She looked right at you and smiled. "Thank you," she said softly, voice calm. Too calm. You looked to the men pulling the cart, expecting them to react. But they didn't seem to see her. When you looked back, she was gone. You don't mention these things, not to the others. Not even to yourself, really. You just notice them and keep going. Then, another evening, you were finishing the last grave. The light was fading fast, and the ground was soft from rain the night before. You reached into your bag to grab the cloth you always used to wipe your hands. It wasn't there. Instead, folded carefully in its place was a letter. No seal, just your name. Written in handwriting you hadn't seen in years. You didn't open it right away. You held it in your palm as the sun dipped below the ruined rooftops. When you finally did open it, the paper was blank. You turned it over twice, shook it gently. Nothing. But for the first time in weeks, you felt something strange. A pressure, maybe? Or a whisper, right behind your ear, just for a second. That night, you heard footsteps outside your door. But when you stepped out, the street was empty. Only the fog, and the soft echo of your own breath. You're not afraid, at least, not in the usual sense. You're just starting to wonder if the dead are forgetting where they're supposed to stay. Or maybe you're forgetting what it means to be alive. Some days, you forget what your voice sounds like. You catch your reflection in a dark window or a puddle and flinch. Not because of the dirt. Not because of the wariness, but because for a moment you thought it wasn't you. You speak to the bodies now, not all of them. Just the ones who look like they had something to say. You nod to them. Sometimes you whisper a name, even if it's one you make up on the spot. Safe journey, Thomas. Rest easy, Marin. You're home now. It makes it feel less like stacking wood. No one sees you doing this. Or maybe they do, and they've simply stopped questioning it. Everyone keeps their own ghosts now. No one dares ask about yours. One morning, you found a familiar face among the bodies again. But this time it wasn't someone from childhood. It was someone you'd seen just days ago. A man who sold apples, red ones that didn't bruise. You'd nodded to him once. He didn't smile back, but he wasn't unkind. Now he was silent, his mouth open, hands clenched. A single apple still in the bag at his side, smashed flat. You placed him carefully, gave him a little extra space, covered the apple, too. You don't know why. You start to wonder what it would be like to lie in the earth. Not out of despair. Not quite. More like curiosity. Does the silence there feel different? Would the pressure of the soil be like a blanket? Would it smell of rest? You wake sometimes with your hands clenched, fingers stiff, as if you've been digging even in your dreams. The others are quieter too. They don't joke anymore. No one asks how you slept. No one offers their bread crusts. Everyone has receded into their own shell. You start calling it the stone, that feeling in your chest, heavy, still, not cold, just unmoving, like your heart turned to river rock. You don't cry. You don't feel much at all, truthfully. But that doesn't frighten you anymore. What frightens you is how comfortable it feels. You wake before the sun rises. Not because you want to, but because someone's knocking on your door before the frost has even melted from the shutters. You don't ask questions. You put on your boots. You grab your tools. You follow. It's the church bell that sets the tone. Not the usual slow toll. Not the one you've come to associate with another death or two. Today it rings fast. Sharp. Panic in every echo. That's never a good sign. You follow the bell to the square and see the carts. 3 of them. Usually one is enough. But now, they've come in 3s, each piled high, the sheets already soaked through. A monk approaches you and just says, "The West Quarter." You nod. No one needs to explain. You'd heard the rumors. That part of town had been sealed off. Too many sick. Too many dying too quickly. Now the seal has been lifted. Not because it's safe, but because there's no one left alive to keep it closed. You walk to the West Field. The place you dig when there's no more room anywhere else. The ground is tough here. Old. Roots twist like veins. Stone lurks just under the surface. But you start anyway. You don't count how many? You used to. You'd keep tally marks in your mind, sometimes in the dirt by your boots. Now you just dig. Throw the soil behind you. Flatten it with your boot. Carve another trench. Someone else brings the bodies now. A different team. Faces you don't recognize. Even they look tired. And that says something. By midday, your shoulders burn. Hands blister. Sweat stings your eyes even in the cold. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. Food will taste like soil anyway. You take one small break to sip from the tin cup of water someone left near a headstone. It's warm. Tastes of iron. You sip it anyway. By the time the sun begins to dip, the carts still aren't empty. And you're still digging. No prayers today. No whispered names. Just the dull thump of the shovel, the groan of the earth, and the creak of wooden wheels behind you. You don't remember finishing. You only remember looking up and seeing that it's dark now. And the hole in front of you is the last one. At least for today. You sit beside it for a moment longer than usual, letting your legs go numb, letting your eyes unfocus. It would be so easy to lie down there, right in the dirt, just for a minute, but you don't. You get up. You shoulder your shovel. You head home. There are hours between the digging sometimes. Not often, but they exist. And when they do, they sit heavy, too quiet, too still. You try to fill them. Sometimes it works. Your home is simple. A stool, a small table, a fireplace that struggles against the damp. There's no one else here. There used to be. But you don't dwell on that. You sharpen your shovel. Not because it needs it every day, but because it gives your hands something to do. The scrape of stone against metal is steady, predictable, comforting, in a way. Other times you just sit, elbows on your knees, eyes on the wall, watching the fire dance low and lazy. You find shapes in the flicker. Faces, sometimes. But you blink them away. You've taken to carving. Bits of wood from broken crates, fallen branches, chair legs left abandoned. Nothing grand. Little figures. Rough outlines. Men with hats. Women in robes. A cat you once saw sleeping on a windowsill. You line them up on the mantel. Tiny wooden sentinels. A quiet audience. Some nights, you read. What little you can get your hands on. Pages from torn prayer books. Old letters tossed in the streets. A half-burnt novel you found in a barrel. You don't care what the words say. You just need them to fill the silence. You drink sometimes. Not much. Just enough to warm the belly. Take the edge off the thoughts. But never too much. Not anymore. There's a spot behind your home. An old bench under a crooked tree. You sit there when the sun's low, when the sky turns orange behind the smoke. You breathe in the air. The stink of rot lessens, just a bit. You close your eyes. And sometimes, just sometimes, you pretend it's years ago. Before the carts. Before the bells. Before the world got so quiet. At night, when the lanterns are out and your tools are resting in the shed, you lie in your cot, facing the ceiling. You don't sleep easy anymore, but you do sleep. Eventually, it always starts the same. A distant sound. It's not loud. Not alarming. A soft scrape like a heel on stone. Far off, somewhere near the edge of the street. Then, nothing. You tell yourself it's wind. Or maybe the board's settling. Maybe a rat dragging something across the floor. You tell yourself that, but it never quite fits. It's too steady, too exact. Sometimes it's footsteps. 3. Pause. Then 2 more. You know that pattern now. It's been weeks. Always the same. Never closer. Never farther. Just there. When you finally fall asleep, the dream begins. It's quiet in the dream too. You're standing in a field. Flat, endless, but soft like velvet underfoot. The sky is grey, not stormy, not clear. Just flat. In the distance stands a shape. It never moves. A person, you can't tell. Tall, or maybe just near the horizon. But it's always there, facing you, watching. You start to walk toward it. Your feet don't make a sound. The air doesn't change. The sky never shifts. You walk and walk. But the shape never gets closer, and you never stop walking. You wake up before reaching it. Always. Sometimes with a shallow breath. Other times with your heart too still, not racing, just too quiet. Like it's holding something in. You never talk about the sound outside. Never mention the dream to anyone. Not that there's anyone left to tell. But they stay with you. Both of them. Like distant bells you can't quite forget. The next time the dream comes, you're standing in the same field. Same velvet ground, same motionless sky. But the shape, it's different now. It still stands far away, still silent. But there's a tilt to the head, a lean of the shoulders, a familiarity. Like someone you've passed in the market, or saw once, across a crowded square. You stare at it, it stares back. No words, no gestures. Just the space between you stretching and thinning. You start to walk again. This time, your footsteps leave slight indentations in the velvet. Just enough to see them behind you. You're aware of your own weight in the dream now. Your breath, the faint sound of cloth brushing your arms. Halfway there, if such a thing exists in dreams. You stop. The figure has shifted. Still in place, but now the arms are lowered. At its side, something hangs. A shovel. Old. Wooden. The metal edge rusted. Exactly like yours. Exactly. You don't speak, you can't. Your lips move, but no voice follows. The air carries no sound, no wind, no resistance. Just that ever staring figure holding your tool, like it's always belonged to them. You wake up again. This time with a faint chill, just beneath the ribs. Not fear. Not really. More like a message you didn't get the words to yet. Outside your door, the footsteps return. But this time, there's breathing. Not heavy, not panicked. Just quiet, measured. Like someone waiting for your door to open. It doesn't. And neither do you. It's not the shoveling. Not the weight. Not even the smell. Though it clings to everything. The real reason it sucks. No one sees you anymore. Not as a person. You're a shadow moving across the edge of their vision. A necessary thing. But nothing more. They see your hands, not your face. See the cart you pull. Not the man pulling it. And if they do look at your face, it's with quiet horror. Like they're expecting death to speak from your mouth. You used to be someone. Maybe a shoemaker. Maybe a man who laughed too loud at night. Maybe someone with friends. Now you're a silhouette, wrapped in rags. Too close to the dead to be trusted by the living. And worse, you know too much. You've seen what the sickness does. How fast it takes. How helpless it makes even the strongest. You've buried children still warm. Men still clutching their chests. Mothers with eyes open. And you've seen the other kind of horror. The kind that comes when people stop caring. When they throw bodies in piles just to get rid of them. When families seal their own doors and pray no one knocks. You're not just a man with a shovel. You're the last stop. The final nod. The one who walks alone when all others run away. So why does it suck? Because your heart is still beating. But no one treats it like it matters anymore. Sometimes the streets are quiet for hours. No new bodies. No screaming from windows. No bells tolling. Just the stillness. But it's not peace. It's that thick, eerie quiet, like the city is holding its breath. Like it's waiting for the next wave. And you can feel it coming. You sit on the edge of the cemetery wall. Boots muddy. Hands numb. Eyes scanning nothing. You tell yourself you'll just sit for a minute. Rest your back. Catch your breath. But minutes pass. Then hours. And your eyes stay fixed on the middle distance. You hear voices that aren't there. Laughter in alleyways you know are empty. The echo of a market that hasn't opened in weeks. And for a moment, you let yourself believe things might be normal again. Then the cart creaks. That old wooden groan pulling you back to now. back to the road, back to the work. And the thing is, you don't even resent it anymore. You don't hate the digging. You don't curse the dead. You just move, like the tide, like the wind pushing dust across empty steps. People think you're numb, but it's not numbness. It's something colder, something quieter, a silence that lives inside your chest and whispers, "Keep moving." And so, you do. Because stopping means remembering who you were before all of this. And that's a wound you're not ready to reopen. At first, they were just glances, a little too long, a little too cold, eyes narrowing from across the street. You told yourself they were just tired, afraid. Everyone was. But the whispers came soon after, soft at first, like dust drifting through the fog, then clearer. He's been at it for months. Never coughs. Never gets the fever. And walks among the dead like it's nothing. And you can't really blame them. They don't understand. They bury their own in panic, if they bury them at all. But you touch the bodies. You carry them on your back. You dig the graves. You say no prayers, and you're still here. To them, that doesn't make sense. They see you like some shadow of death, a man immune to the curse, a figure in black, mud-covered, always walking the same lonely roads. You've heard it all. He drinks the blood of the dead. He whispers to the corpses. He knows when people will die. He marks their doors. You laughed the first time. Laughed quietly to yourself, until you realized they weren't just stories for children. They really believe it. A boy dropped his bread when you passed. A woman crossed herself and turned away. And once, just once, you found a crude mark scratched into your door, a warning, or a curse, or maybe both. You've become a myth in a city that no longer trusts the living. The only thing worse than being forgotten is being feared for the wrong reasons. But you don't try to change their minds. You know it wouldn't help. The more you speak, the stranger you seem. So you stay quiet. And when the cart creaks behind you again, you walk on, a ghost among the grieving. You didn't notice it at first. How the voice inside your head stopped calling you by name. It just faded, like the echo of something long ago you forgot you were supposed to remember. Now you walk, you work, you sleep, but you don't think in names anymore. Not yours, not theirs. Only the work remains. The graves don't ask questions. The dead don't whisper rumors. They lie still. And maybe, in a way, you've started to envy them. Not in a dark, brooding sense. Not with longing, but with a strange, soft understanding. You see them, the weight lifted from their faces. No fear, no pain, no eyes watching them from alleys or doorways or shuttered windows. They're at peace. And you? You keep moving, dragging the cart, digging into earth so frozen, you sometimes forget what warm soil ever felt like. Your hands are calloused, your eyes half shut even when open. You dream rarely. When you do, it's of quiet places, forests, empty fields. No one speaking, no one judging, just wind. Sometimes you see your own face in puddles, and it surprises you. You don't look like the man you used to be. There's something missing in the eyes. Not sadness, not madness, just distance. You remember how someone once said a man can live so long alone that he becomes silence itself. You're beginning to understand what they meant. You're not spoken to much anymore. But you are spoken about. In hushed tones, behind doors, across alleyways. Mothers use your name the way they used to use fairy tales. Go to bed. They whisper. Or the gravedigger will come. As if you were some creature crawling from the mist. Not a man who once laughed and shared bread and remembered birthdays. You hear it in passing. The way footsteps quicken behind you. then vanish around corners. Children peek through shutters, then vanish behind curtains, as if the plague itself rode in your shadow. You never meant to become this. Not a monster, not a myth, not a threat, but that's what you are now. To them, it's not the shovel, not the scent, not the cart. It's the look in your eyes. They say it has no soul behind it, just distance. Endless distance. They say no man sees so much death and stays a man. They say you don't get sick because you made a pact with something old, something wrong. You tried to explain once that you wash, that you burn your clothes, that you sleep far from others, that you eat what's safe and speak to no one. They didn't listen. Now the whispers are worse. Witchcraft, curses, darkness wrapped in flesh. And you keep walking, because what else is there to do? You wonder sometimes, if you were to fall sick tomorrow, who would bury you? Would anyone dare? There are mornings when you wake and wonder if you're still breathing. The line blurs, not because of pain, but because you've forgotten what feeling alive actually felt like. You move through the town like a ghost made of skin and bone. Cart behind you, boots trailing dust over cobblestone, heart ticking like an old clock that's too tired to chime. It's strange. You see the dying, you see the dead, but you rarely feel anything anymore. Once, the sight of a child limp in a mother's arms would tear something inside. Now, it's just another bundle to be wrapped, another small grave to be dug in silence. The world moves around you, but not with you. People speak in voices you no longer follow. Faces come and go, but none stay in memory. Even your own reflection feels unfamiliar now, as if the mirror holds someone else. Sometimes, as you sit by your fire, with no warmth in your chest, you wonder, what if you did die, sometime back in those early days, and just forgot to stop moving? You try to remember your own voice, what it used to sound like. But all that comes is the rhythm of shovels, and silence, always the silence. You walk the streets because you must, not for pleasure, not for errands, only to collect what the world has lost. People move aside when they see you. No one tells them to. They just do, like animals sensing a predator, or prey spotting death before it arrives. They don't meet your eyes. Sometimes, you wonder if they think you'll curse them by accident, or worse, that your gaze will somehow draw the sickness in. A baker once handed you bread without a word, held it out at arm's length, like you were a starving wolf. You nodded in thanks. He didn't nod back. A child pointed at you once, laughing, calling you the bone man. His mother slapped his hand down, whispered sharp words in his ear, and dragged him away. It's not hatred you feel from them. Not quite. More like the way people look at a shadow they can't explain. A shadow they hope won't notice them. You've become a walking omen. They speak your name only in hushed tones or behind closed doors. To your face, they say nothing at all. Sometimes someone nods, quickly, more out of fear than respect. You nod back because it's all you know how to do. You're sitting near the well, not for the water, just the silence. You've grown fond of silence. Then comes a voice, soft, unsure. You're the one who digs, aren't you? You look up. It's a girl, 16, maybe 17, wrapped in a cloak too large for her frame. You nod slowly. You don't speak. She sits down across from you anyway. The stones between you seem colder. My brother was taken yesterday. She says it like it's a fact. Not sadness. Not anger, just a thing that happened. You wait. There's nothing to say. You've buried too many to offer comfort. I saw you carry him, she adds. I watched. From the window. You glance up again. Still no answer. Still no need for one. I don't know why I came out here, she says. You think you know. People don't come to you for answers. They come because you've seen things. Things they can't talk about with anyone else. I thought maybe you'd tell me something. She's quiet for a moment. Then, softer. What happens after? You finally speak. Just one sentence. One you've said before. More to yourself than to others. We return to the ground. She stares at the dirt, as if trying to hear it breathe. After a while, she nods once. Okay? She whispers. Thank you. She leaves a small cloth bundle beside you. Bread? You don't ask why. You don't see her again. But sometimes you remember her voice. Soft. Almost like wind through empty branches. Morning has no meaning anymore. The sun rises. The fog lifts. You rise with it, stretch the stiffness from your spine, and press your heel into the frost-bitten ground. It gives a little under your weight. Still soft enough to dig. You check the row you carved out yesterday. 6 graves, neatly lined. You mark them with stones and carved initials, if you knew them. If not, a simple notch in the dirt. Now you have to find more space. The graveyard is full. So is the yard behind it. Even the church's outer wall has been used. They told you to look outward, past the roads, into the woods, find clearings, fields. Somewhere they won't be disturbed. But the woods are wet. The ground is rooted deep. You need more time for each grave. Twice as much effort. Sometimes you wonder if the ground will simply say no. Refuse to open anymore. You spend your morning pacing the edge of the field, looking for spots the living haven't claimed. No homes. No shrines. Just earth, untouched and quiet. You pace in silence. No birds. No wind. Only your own footsteps crunching through frost and brown leaves. You find a spot. A dip in the land, sheltered by 3 crooked trees. Enough for 4, maybe 5 graves. You set your spade down, mark the boundary with old sticks, and turn back toward the road. Now, the wait. You sit near the edge of the well again. Same spot. Same stare into the distance. Your hands folded, boots muddy, back straight. You wait for the cart. It rattles in, slow and familiar. The driver doesn't speak anymore. Neither do you. He lowers the gate, and the smell spills out like it's alive. You don't gag. You haven't for weeks. Your nose learned how to shut itself off. Or maybe your mind did. You drag them down one by one. Stacked bodies, wrapped in whatever cloth remained. Some of them still warm. The driver smokes. Sits on the edge. He used to help. Now he just waits. You don't blame him. You take a body in your arms. Lighter than you expect. Some are like that. All bone and silence. As you carry it toward the new plot, you realize you're not thinking about anything. Not their name. Not their face. Not your own hands. You're just moving. It's muscle memory now. Lift, carry, lower, fill, mark, repeat. There is no reverence left. Not because you don't care, but because the weight has shifted. Death is not an event anymore. It's a routine. Sometimes, as you wait for the next cart, you look down at your hands, your fingernails dark, your skin leathered, and you wonder, when was the last time you buried someone you knew? You can't remember. The wind picks up. You pull your cloak tighter. The cart's wheels turn again. Empty now. You go back to digging. The ground here is stubborn. Roots cling like fingers. But you keep going. Because tomorrow they'll bring more. And someone has to make room. There is a place you return to more than any other. Not your home. That no longer feels like one. Not the chapel. Its silence too heavy, too echoing. Not even the woods, where your spade finds reluctant ground. It's the well. An old, mossy stone thing. Low and wide, with a crooked wood beam and a rusted pulley. The rope has long since snapped. No bucket. No use. Just a hole in the earth where water waits far below and light barely dares to reach. You sit beside it often, and you stare. It began as a place to rest. Your shoulders would ache, your hands would tremble, and you'd need to be still. So you sat. At first, you'd glance into the water, maybe toss a pebble to see the ripples, to measure the depth, to distract your thoughts. But over time, you started to look longer, and longer still, until hours would pass, completely forgotten, while your eyes stayed locked on the wavering reflection below. There's something about the way the water shifts, never truly still. Even without wind, it dances with invisible movement. You see your face, but never quite the same, sometimes elongated, sometimes cracked apart by ripples, sometimes hollow. Some days, the reflection stares back at you. You blink, it blinks, you tilt your head. So does it, but it feels slower, like it's a memory trying to catch up with your body. Other days, it doesn't move at all, even when you shift, even when you breathe. And those are the days you feel afraid. You don't know who that is anymore. The man in the water, he looks like you, but older, tired in ways that bones cannot show, eyes like burned-out lanterns. You study him closely. The shape of your jaw, now sharper from months of poor eating. The dark growth of your beard, like soot that refuses to leave. The lines beside your eyes, new, deep, and permanent. You try to remember what you looked like before all this. Before the carts, before the smell, before digging became your only language. But the memory won't come. You wonder if this reflection isn't real anymore, but something you've created, an echo. A mask, a person-shaped shadow that took your place the moment you buried too many names. The well has become your confessional, but you say nothing. It listens anyway. You give it your silence, your breath, your time. And in return, it gives you stillness. A moment where the world doesn't pull you in any direction. Sometimes, you think about throwing something in. Not your spade. Not a stone. Something invisible. The part of you that remembers laughter. Or the part that grieved once. Truly grieved. Before numbness took over. Maybe you already did. And the reflection is all that's left. The sun shifts in the sky. The light changes the water's face. You notice the new lines on your forehead. How your shoulders sit higher now, like they're bracing for something even in stillness. You sit longer, always longer than you should, even when your back aches and your stomach growls. You don't feel the cold anymore, or the passing of time, only the quiet pull of the well, and the man in the dark water watching you, as if waiting for something. A crow lands nearby, then leaves. You barely notice. You don't know what you're waiting for either. But you stay, because the well never speaks. And that kind of silence feels like the closest thing to peace. There's no bell that rings to start the day. No rooster crowing. No warm hearth or morning bread. No gentle rhythm of waking life. There's only the sound of your own joints as they complain with the first movement. The dull ache in your lower spine. The stiffness in your knees. The thick soreness in your palms from gripping the handle of your shovel for too many hours, too many days, too many graves. You rise in silence. There is no one to greet you, no one to ask how you slept. And truth be told, you don't remember if you even did. Sleep has become an idea, something abstract. Your body closes its eyes because it must. But your mind doesn't always follow. You step out into the grey air, the kind that doesn't seem to belong to any season. The wind doesn't bite, but it carries the scent of rot, and that's worse. You breathe through your mouth now. It's a habit, an automatic response to the stench that clings to every corner of the town. The carts are already moving when you begin. wheels creaking, axles groaning under the weight. Some drivers cough violently into their sleeves. Others wear scarves soaked in vinegar. Most have stopped speaking altogether. You don't speak either. There's nothing to say. Just nods, short glances, hands tightening around reins. The first grave is always the hardest, not because it's emotional, not anymore, but because your body isn't ready. The earth fights you in the morning. It's cold, dense, heavy. Each shovelful takes more effort than the last. Your breath clouds the air in front of you, and your arms burn. Before you're halfway done, you pause, lean on the shovel, stare at nothing. The emptiness between tasks has become your only form of rest. The second grave is easier, your muscles warm. You find a rhythm, not quite graceful, but steady. Dig, lift, toss, repeat. By the fourth, your shirt clings to your back. Dirt gets under your nails. Sweat mixes with dust on your face. You smell like earth and iron. And something else? Something faintly sweet that you try not to identify. You don't count the graves anymore. That's a rule you made for yourself. To count would be to measure. And to measure would be to understand. And you've learned it's better not to understand. The numbers are too big, too final, too cruel. You dig, you cover, you wipe your brow. You move on. Some days, the ground fights back. Heavy rain turns soil into thick sludge. Shovels get stuck, boots sink. Corpses slide at angles you try not to see. Other days, the sun beats down hard. The clay dries. Your skin cracks. The handle of your spade rubs blisters into the same spots it did the day before. And the day before that. You've seen gloves come and go. They tear, rot, fall apart. So now it's bare hands, thick-skinned, calloused, stained. The dirt never fully comes out, even after washing. It clings beneath the nails, in the folds of your knuckles, behind your ears. It's a part of you now. Then there's the waiting. Some days, the carts arrive late. You sit on the edge of a fresh grave, legs dangling inside, and just wait. You don't think. You don't speak. You just watch the tree line, the sky, a lone bird shifting from branch to branch. You feel like a scarecrow, half buried in the ground, meant to scare off nothing at all. When the cart finally comes, you help unload. You never ask who they were, never read the scraps of letters tied around their wrists. You've learned not to look at the faces for more than a second, just enough to orient them. Head facing east, if you can manage it. Cover them. Pack the earth. Press it down. Mark the spot. And then, move to the next. The graveyard has spread beyond its fences. There's no real boundary anymore. You dig wherever the ground accepts you. Sometimes too close to others. Sometimes on slopes. Sometimes near roots that twist like hands trying to hold on to the dead. There's no pattern left. Only necessity. You've begun marking spots with broken sticks, old shoes, pieces of cloth, a rusted nail, something, anything. You eat quickly. Bread gone stale. Soup gone cold. Sometimes nothing at all. Your stomach doesn't complain anymore. It's learned the routine. And then, just before dusk, you stand, covered in dust and silence, looking out across rows of uneven ground, each one filled by your hand, your labor, your unwilling love. You wonder often, how many of these people once passed you in the street, were kind to you, or ignored you? You don't remember. Faces have become shapes, names have become echoes. You shoulder your tools, return to the well, sit, stare, and wait for nothing. The shovel isn't heavy anymore. Not really. It's just an extension of your arm now. Like your shadow, or your breath. The first time you held it, you were afraid. Not of the tool itself, but of what it meant. What it would turn you into. Now, you barely notice it at all. Its shape fits your grip, So well you sometimes wake in the night, with your fingers curled around nothing, still holding on. The work hasn't stopped. Not once. And it likely won't. Not until the last cart rolls in, and the last breath leaves the last chest, and the world is done with you. But something inside you has shifted. Not a break. You broke long ago. This is something quieter, more final. You don't hate it anymore. There's no fire left in you for that. Now there's only dust. Dust and bone and repetition. And silence. You've stopped visiting the chapel. Not out of anger. Not even doubt. Just stillness. You've buried too many priests to believe they have answers now. God may be there. He may not. But either way, he hasn't helped you dig. The town has thinned. You see fewer faces each day, even fewer that look at you. Children hide behind their mothers. Shopkeepers turn away. Dogs bark at your scent, and then fall silent when they see your eyes. Sometimes you catch your reflection in a window pane or puddle. A shape draped in brown and black, face smeared with earth, eyes that don't blink quickly enough. You don't recognize the man, but neither do you fear him. You simply nod and keep walking. There are fewer carts now. You think that means it's slowing, or that there's no one left to push them. Either way, the piles are smaller, the groans of the dying fewer. You thought you would feel something when the end came close. Relief, joy, regret. But all you feel is the ache in your knees, and the smoothness of the shovel handle polished by your own skin. Sometimes you speak, to no one in particular, to the dead, to the sky, to the ground beneath your boots. You whisper things like, "It's done now," or "Tomorrow I'll rest." But you don't believe yourself. Not really. One evening, you dig a grave slower than usual. The air is still. No birds, no wind. Even the trees seem to hold their breath. You pause, lean on your shovel, and look up at the fading sky. It's quiet. So quiet. And for a moment, just one, you feel something close to peace. Not hope. Not forgiveness. Just a kind of tired understanding. Like a final note in a song you didn't realize you were humming all this time. You finish the grave. Cover it carefully. Pat the earth down flat, mark it with a stone. Then you sit, back against a crooked tree, fingers stained, knees stiff, eyes heavy. The sky darkens. The stars blink into view, one by one. And for once, you don't feel the need to move. You just breathe. And wait. The world didn't stop. Not for the dead. Not for the dying. And not for him. He kept digging. Even when the bells stopped ringing. Even when no one called for his help. Even when the carts no longer came rolling down the mud, slick streets, creaking beneath the weight of yesterday's sorrow. He just kept digging. The soil, once thick and heavy, turned dry and cracked. Less damp, less disturbed. Even the rats grew thin. He noticed the silence more than he ever had before. The wind through empty windows. The creak of doorways half hung on rusted hinges. The way his own footsteps sounded like someone else following him when he walked through the alleys. He waited. Waited for the plague to find him. It had taken everyone else. The children who played near the orchard. The apothecary with trembling hands. Even the man who once laughed too loud in the market square. But not him. No boils. No fever. No cough in the night. Just the endless routine. Graves to be dug. Stones to be placed. Earth to be flattened like it never rose to cradle a soul at all. He began to wonder, was it punishment? Or mercy? To remain untouched while everyone else had been claimed. He had no one to tell. No one to ask. So he asked the well. It sat behind the chapel, crooked and mossy. Its wooden cover long since broken. And every night he would walk there. Not for water. Not for wishes, but to stare. Into the dark reflection of a man he no longer recognized. Not young. Not old. just worn down. A shape, not a soul. Sometimes he would speak to the water. Why not me? Did I not bleed enough? Am I still alive? The well, like the sky, gave no answers. Seasons passed. But they no longer felt like seasons. Just shades of grey in the sky. One long breath, never exhaled. The graveyard had spilled beyond the fences, into the fields, into the woods, into the memories of what once was. And he had buried them all. Now he buried strangers. Not that it mattered. Even friends looked like strangers after enough time in the earth. Even he did. At night, he would lie on the ground beside the graves. No blanket, no fire, just the cold soil against his back, and the stars blinking silently above. Each time he closed his eyes, he wondered if he'd open them again. And each morning, he did. Eyes dry, chest heavy, heart still ticking in a rhythm he no longer paid attention to. There was a day, maybe in spring, though it smelled like nothing, when he finally stopped digging. Not because he couldn't, but because he no longer needed to. There was no one left, and still the plague did not come. Still he waited. He grew older, not visibly, but inside. His thoughts came slower. Memories faded like fog in morning light. Faces he once knew turned to fragments. Voices faded to a low hum in the background of dreams he barely remembered. Even pain abandoned him. His hands stopped aching. His knees stopped protesting, as if even his body had given up trying to be alive. And so he waited, each night, by the well, by the graves, by the chapel, eyes fixed forward, silent still, waiting to cough, to sweat, to fall, to be taken. But nothing came. And maybe that's what made it the hardest. Not the loss, not the grief, not the endless repetition of death, but the waiting, the absence of an end, the echoing space where something final should be. He became the last grave he could never dig, a living one, walking, watching, wondering. And with that, our story, dear listener, is complete. You've walked beside him through plague and silence, through fog and flame, through the empty streets of a world that forgot to die properly. You've heard the spades strike the earth, felt the weight of soil on your boots, and watched the skies grow darker with each passing breath. And now, it's time to rest. Where he never could, you can, so close your eyes, let the quiet in. Let the stillness take shape. And if the silence ever grows too loud, just remember you are not the gravedigger. You are not alone. And morning always finds its way back, even after the longest night. Sleep well tonight. And if you wake with the memory of earth beneath your nails, and the sound of a shovel in your mind, don't worry. It's only a story, or at least you hope it is. Good night.